okay because we have a lot prepared for the event and we hope to stay on time. So I guess I will just start the event now. And thank you so much for everyone, attending our first Women's Maker Program final showcase. And apologize for sometimes looking sideways because I have a dual monitor set up. So you're all on the other monitor. And then the main monitor is my presentation. So as a reminder, to make sure we have a enjoyable online experience, please make sure that your mic is muted during the entire event when you're not talking. We also ask the guests to turn off your cameras, but it seems like now we're fine. But we're supposed to have about 40 people in total. So I think it's better if we turn on the cameras for the guests and the panelists. We do encourage you to turn it on if you are able, but at least during the feedback session, we ask you to turn on your cameras. And let me see, I have to click this. So here's the schedule for today. We would like to, first of all, discuss the design of the program to provide you with a better context for the later showcase. And also, we will then start with the fellows presenting their community projects, as well as their final plan for hosting the Girl Scouts Maker Camp. And then finally, we will have an award ceremony, and we will close the event with additional thoughts. So hello, everyone. My name is F.O.N. Yi. I'm the educational technologist. I'm in charge of the program design and implementation. And my preferred name is F.O.N. and my preferred pronouns is she, her. And now I will pass on to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Hi all, I'm Maggie Nunley. I'm the research librarian for engineering and the liaison to engineering and society and computer science. I prefer Maggie, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Hey, Jennifer, we can't hear you for some reason. Maybe it's the setting.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Roper. I'm the Director for Digital Strategies, and I'm also an 8-year Girl Scout leader, which was how I came to be involved in this group. My preferred name is Jennifer, and my pronouns are she, her, and I was in charge of the speaker series and also a liaison with the Girl Scout community.
Great. So I would like to start with the research finding from the National Science Foundation in 2018. Basically, the research finds that girls and boys share similarities in their abilities in studying science and engineering before college. However, we can clearly see the gender disparities begin to emerge at the undergraduate level. So that means that undergraduate level is a critical turning point for gender equality issues in STEM. Sorry. So clearly in the past decades, there are a number of initiatives, a lot of efforts on improving gender equality in STEM. So we can clearly see from this data that there's a steady rise for women earning bachelor degrees in STEM majors. But we can see that the gender gap still remains more or less the same. So you may be wondering, how's UVA doing in this regard? And looking at the data, I'm actually very proud to say that we have above national average numbers in terms of our percentage of women studying engineering at the undergraduate level at UVA, as well as the computer engineering schools. We have a very good number of people. Take a look at the next slides. We have a very good number of people earning bachelor's degrees in computer science majors compared to the national average. And also, in fact, the engineering school was among the first receiving the Bronze Award from the American Society for Engineering Education's Diversity Recognition Program. So yeah, both schools have been doing a great job in terms of improving their diversity and gender equality. However, looking at the numbers, we certainly realize that there's still room for improvement, and we're far from reaching the gender equality in terms of our representation. And also, I would like to remind us that it's not just about wrapping up the numbers. It's also about creating the educational experiences that that are enjoyable and meaningful for the female students, and also make them feel that they belong to the field. So to understand how UVA students feel about studying here, studying STEM majors here, and we included a question in our application forms asking them, so what are your current challenges in your study? And by analyzing the responses for this question, we basically discovered that it basically echoed the research findings on the main factors which affect women's retention in STEM. And we can see that the major factors for the UVA female students here are experience gap, the lack of a sense of belonging, as well as curriculum issues. And here, the curriculum issues refers to curriculum that isn't connected to the real world applications in a direct way. So all of these factors have contributed to the fellows feeling unconfident, and they often have self-doubt, and then some of them also said that they have imposter syndrome. We're also very surprisingly to find that even the Rhodes Scholars students also feel that they don't belong here occasionally, and for those of you who are not familiar with the Rhodes Scholars program, they are the honors program in the engineering school, and they only awarded roughly 5% of the entering class to be selected to be part of the program. And they are selected based on their potential to become the future leaders in the field, and also based on their past academic achievement. So so even these futures, even these female students who supposed to be future leaders still constantly doubting their abilities in studying STEM. I guess that just reassured us there's, this is a problem and we need to address it. So why doing the Women's Maker program? In a nutshell, women still remain underrepresented in STEM fields, in STEM majors, as well as in the STEM workforce. And not just about representation issues, we certainly can work on that, but also about making sure that we provide enjoyable educational experiences. And we also have room for improvement in that regard. And also research has suggested that makerspaces have the potential to serve as a non-traditional route to bridge the experience gap and help equip the students with the necessary skills and the knowledge they need for their study here and also for their future career. So the question is how we can help out. And based on the research, these are the 6 strategies that have been proven effective in the past. They are providing instruction implicit bias and stereotypes, expose student to female role models, and help them develop a growth mindset that values failures and treat it as opportunity for learning. And then help them decrease the experience gap, create an inclusive learning environment, and also connect the curriculum to real world applications. So we basically designed our Women's Maker program based on the suggestions I mentioned above. And so the first thing we did is to select 6 fellows from the various STEM majors and years of study so that we can create an inclusive environment for them in terms of learning. We have an emphasis on first and second year female students because we want to intervene early. And also, we want to expose our fellows to female role models by doing this Women in STEM speaker series. We also asked the fellows to, self-identify a community project that they are passionate about, so we can provide them opportunities to work on, to apply their skills into solving a real-world problem. And finally, we hope that they could become role models for the future generation. So we together designed this one-day camp for middle school Girl Scouts. So in the end, our primary purposes for the Women's Maker programs are the following. We want to increase their confidence and interest in STEM and makerspace technologies. We want to improve their sense of belonging and help them prepare for the future careers. And also we want to keep improving gender equality in the library makerspaces. And on that note, we definitely, by analyzing the usage data of the Robson Media Center spaces and the equipment, we already observed that certain technology in the spaces have been heavily dominated by male students. So in terms of representation, we certainly have room to improve on that regard. But also we also realize through designing, implementing, and now even hosting this online event, how easy it is to make our spaces not inclusive and how much effort needed and required to make it inclusive. And gender inclusivity is a very complicated and nuanced topic and issue. So it means different things for different people. So what we learn is it's very important to have direct interactions with a diverse population so we can learn from our patrons and reflect on the mistakes we made and keep improving. So one of the goals of this online showcase is also to raise awareness of this issue. So everyone across the campus could hopefully work on this together. So now I will pass on to my colleagues, Maggie, to talk about our effort on marketing and recruitment, and then Jennifer will talk about the speaker series, and finally I will discuss the details of the fellowship design.
All right, so the marketing and recruitment, we went as broad as possible, focusing not only on the School of Engineering, but all majors, even opening it up to humanities and social sciences majors who may not be majoring in STEM, but have an interest in STEM. And we did this marketing through a variety of options, basically any way that we could think to reach the students that we were hoping to reach. We passed out flyers and postcards, we pushed out mailing lists, and then we leveraged the relationship that the liaison librarians had with a lot of the departments to both reach out to different groups, clubs, classes, anywhere that we thought that we could attract students that would have benefit from this program. So I point this out a lot, but I think our biggest fear was that we wouldn't be able to fill. We originally wanted to hire 4 people for the program. Our biggest fear was that we wouldn't be able to get 4 applications, but we actually ended up having 37 students apply. And I think Jennifer and F.O.N will agree with me that going through those applications and picking the 6 finalists was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. They were all fantastic and passionate, and we wished that we could hire all of them. And that's why we actually reworked our original proposal from hiring 4 students to hiring 6, because we could not narrow it down any further. All right, and these are our cohort, our very first cohort for the Women's Maker program. I didn't know, F.O.N, are we gonna have the students introduce themselves, or?
Yeah, we will have them introduce themselves now.
All right.
Brittany, do you want to start?
Hi, my name is Brittany Sandoval Rivera. I'm a first year in the engineering school, and I'm going to major in computer science.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a second year in the college and I'm planning to major in chemistry.
Hi, I'm Ishika. I'm a first year in the college and I'm a declared computer science major.
Unfortunately, I don't see Theo here for some reason, so we will continue with Easy.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Isabel or Izzy. I'm also a first year in the College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm majoring in computer science.
And hi, my name is Georgia. I'm a second year in the School of Engineering. I'm a mechanical engineer.
Great. Thanks for all your introductions. And now it's Jennifer's turn for the speaker series.
So our initial plan for the speaker series had been to host 3 speakers on grounds between February and April. And even though world events changed that plan dramatically, we were fortunate to host 2 outstanding speakers for Zoom-based events in March and April. We had sought input on the names of potential speakers on the application, so we actually had a pretty rich field to select from, and we were able to host 2 speakers with varied backgrounds and careers in STEM. And we asked each speaker to discuss their journey in STEM. In March, Remy Pangle from James Madison University shared her path to actually a variety of roles studying and sharing the science of sustainable engineering. Her talk featured an interactive quiz that engaged the fellows, and actually I have to say in my house it engaged the younger learners as well, in thinking about various aspects of solar and wind energy. And then in April, Melissa Goldman from the UVA School of Architecture shared her journey towards becoming a professional maker, starting in a theater background. In addition to sharing fascinating stories on cross-discipline and cross-institutional projects, Melissa discussed how the local maker community worked to create and supplement the available personal protective equipment for healthcare workers responding to the local COVID-19 crisis. We did record these events and they will be publicly available soon. I highly recommend listening to both talks. They were both engaging and very interesting.
Thanks, Jennifer. And in interest of time, I will be quick in terms of discussing the fellowship program design. But basically, this program lasts for a whole semester, and we had 2 weekly meetings, almost every 2-hour weekly meetings almost every week. And then we also, the first part, we focus on giving the fellows trainings on a variety of makerspace technologies. And we also use our meeting times for them to attend the speaker series, as well as learning about design thinking methodology and then apply that for designing the Maker Camp. And we originally planned to host our Girl Scout Maker Camp in late March. However, due to the current pandemic, we're not able to do that. So we just keep working on the plan. And here's a list of the fellowship goals. But basically, we want to provide student trainings on design thinking, human-centered design, so they know how to effectively solve a problem. And then want to empower them to develop this maker mindset, such as having a creative confidence as well as a growth mindset. And we want to expose them to a variety of makerspace technologies, and that particularly have been used for prototyping purposes. And we want to empower them to become maker agency, to develop maker agency. And hopefully all of these will have a positive impact on their STEM learning. And as for their final deliverables, we asked them to leave the library with a working prototype, and that's the prototype you're gonna see during the later presentation. And we also asked them to write a design document and then public present their work. And then for individuals, by the end, they will have a portfolio of project that they can showcase to the public. And we also ask them to keep a learning journal, and we will award them with a certificate of a completion at the end of the program. So here are just some pictures and the videos showing how they have attended a variety of workshops. And here's the pictures of their 3D printing projects. And here's they learn to use a 3D modeling modeling software called Fusion 360 to make airplane model. And they also learn to create a virtual world using NEOs in VR. However, due to the pandemic, we're not able to see their work in person, but luckily we got a video showing they're working on that. So we also ask each of the fellows to keep a learning journal so they can document and reflect on their learning process. And Izzy had kindly shared her learning journal with the public. So that link I will share later. So you can also take a look afterwards if you want to learn more about the program. So I really resonate with Melissa Golden's talk about how making is community practice. So I kind of summarize as the following: making is of the community, by the community, and for the community. And that leads to the presentation of the fellows community projects. I'm also very pleased to announce that we have invited some experts in the field to provide feedback to both the community projects as well as the Maker Camp plan. So I will have the panelists now introduce themselves. So here's the panelist for Team ACE project. Amber, are you ready to start?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Amber. I do content strategy for library communications, and my work kind of touches into editing and writing, but then more so things like information architecture and the organization of the things that we put on the web. And most of the time it applies to in-person experiences as well, but a little more digital these days. But kudos to you all for these projects that we're about to see, because I know it's been a real challenge of a semester. So I can't wait to see what you've come up with.
Great. Next.
Hi, I'm Drew McQueen. I'm a GIS consultant in the Scholars Lab in the UVA library. We consult also a lot of remote consultation now on geospatial projects, conversions of 3D to 2D and vice versa, anything spatial. I've seen some write-ups about the work that you guys have done, but I'm really excited just to actually see what you've created.
Jason.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to do this, Fang. This is really exciting, and I look forward to seeing the presentations. At the iLab, we see a pretty wide range of ventures, and I'm very excited to see what's going to be presented today, and hopefully there's ways we can support even beyond today's presentation. So looking forward to seeing what you've put together.
Great, thanks. And here's the panelist for Team B's project.
Hi everyone, I'm Phoebe Chrisman. Really looking forward to seeing the presentations today. I'm a professor in the School of Architecture, and I also direct the university's Global Sustainability Program. So, and I've been working with F.O.N on some technological innovations in my classes, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what you've all done.
Thanks.
Hi all, I'm Melissa Goldman. You were able to hear from me in April. It was my honor to be there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing today's presentations. I work at the Fab Lab at the School of Architecture and get to play with all sorts of tools and robots on a daily basis.
Great. And we have Jason again for to be our panelist for Team B's project. And I will later introduce the panelist for the Maker Camp plan. So here's the schedule for this section. Each team is gonna have 8 minutes to present their community project, and they will have 5 minutes to receive feedback from the panelists. And after both teams finish their presentations, we'll have 4 minutes at the end for feedback from the guests. And here's the link for you to check on their design document. Once the team A starts to present, I will be able to copy that into the chat box so you can take a look at there. And also we want to keep us on time, so we will play a sound at the 7-minute mark as a reminder. So Maggie is in charge of that. And Maggie, just please make sure you're unmuted. Great. Yeah, so you hear the sound and that's the reminder. So to wrap up. Okay, so now we will welcome Team A to start. Are you guys ready? Sorry, are you all ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I will stop sharing and so you can share now.
Welcome to our team's community project pitch. First, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Michelle.
I'm Ishika.
And I'm Brittany.
We're thrilled to show you a glimpse into some of the hard work we've put into the fellowship this past semester. We'll be taking you through this agenda for our project proposal today. Imagine it's the middle of final season and you're trying to set up for a day packed full of studying so you can ace your physics final. But when you walk into Clem with your study group, every seat is already taken. Next, you head to Alderman, but when you finally find an empty spot, it's a quiet zone and you can't talk to your study buddies and have to move again. It's already been a waste of 20 minutes and you still haven't found the perfect study space. This is the exact issue that we're trying to tackle. In an average day of a college student in the US, a large portion of time is spent on educational activities. Minimizing the amount of wasted time during the day can significantly improve a student's daily schedule. We then looked at current resources that are available to students about study spaces. Explore Study Spaces at UVA has a list of study spaces around grounds and groups them by category. Google Maps is another resource that shows the library location, hours open, popular times, and even has reviews. We aim to streamline the student experience at UVA by reducing the wasted time and energy that goes into finding one's perfect study space. One of the main issues with current resources to find a study space is that the information is in the form of a web browser. However, students are usually on their phone apps instead of websites the majority of the day. A second issue is that there isn't one place with all the information that a student may want to know in order to determine their ideal study space. And lastly, we found that there are some factors that students may care about for a study space that aren't provided by current resources. Now, Ishika will be taking you through our design process.
The solution that we think best solves the student study space problem that Michelle just described is an accessible app that provides information on the aspects of study spaces that students care about most. So to find out what students care about most regarding these study spaces, we conducted a survey amongst the UVA student population.
We wanted an idea of what features mattered most to students when deciding what to put in our app. The first survey asked, what information would you want to have in an app for UVA students? Based on the results, we decided to include the food and printer availability and busyness and noise level of study locations. Though there were some votes for transportation, we decided not to add it, seeing that the Rider app is already widely used. So after making the final decisions of what elements needed to be added to Who's Studying, we created a prototype.
By implementing the findings that Brittany just described, we created an intuitive app called Who's Studying that caters to the needs of UVA students.
If the user does not have an account already, they can press sign up. If they do have an account, they would log in as normal. Pressing the Let's Get Studying button allows the user to enter the app. Here is a map of grounds. Each dot indicates a study space on grounds, and the color of the dot corresponds to the busyness of that study space. When the user selects a study space, the app presents basic information for it such as the seats available, noise level, hours open, and food availability. If they want to access more information on the study space, they can click the information icon. Who's Studying also has a profile feature where students can choose to input academic-related information such as their major. The chat room feature allows students to communicate with other people in the same study space. It also displays the amount of people active in each chat room so students can see which spaces appear the busiest. Users have the option to create personal study chats as well. The Search tab allows users to either search for a specific study space or to find study spaces that fit certain criteria, such as quiet study spaces. If users choose to log out of the app, they can do so using the side menu.
For the second survey, we had participants test out the prototype. We discovered that participants liked the fact that we grouped study spaces according to group study, reservable, or quiet spaces. They also liked seeing the number of active people in each library because it gave them an idea of how crowded that space was at that moment. Lastly, they enjoyed the chat room feature because it connected them to nearby people. A few suggestions we got included adding library events going on and links to reserve rooms. We received both criticism and praise from our survey respondents. The criticism mainly involved functionality issues, while we were praised for our app's overall goal and design. The general consensus that we gathered from our survey indicates that a majority of students would personally download Who's Studying and also recommend it to a friend. Several improvements need to be made on our app in order for it to be as useful as possible for students. However, our ability to make these changes is limited due to our current prototyping software. Smoother functionality is the most important element that needs to be implemented. This includes fixing interaction so the user does not get stuck on the page and also being able to take real user input and store the information.
Once we're able to return to grounds, we hope to test our app to see how people would actually use and interact with it. That being said, we wish to implement a noise and busyness tracker for our app. This could be a new device that we build that would track decibels, or the noise and busyness levels could simply be tracked by library employees each hour. We want the noise and busyness level features to be as accurate as possible, but we also want to make sure that we're capable of executing whichever option we choose. So this is something that we would need to further investigate when we return to UVA. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our presentation today. Do you have any questions?
Great, I will applaud. So yeah, it's time for feedback from the panelists.
I'll go ahead and comment, and I've got a question. I think this is really good. You know, we've discussed the need, or I should say the desire certainly among students for something that is app-based. Even as old people, we use our phones probably more often than we even like to admit. And so, and particularly when you're on the move, if you, like you said, if you go to Clem and it's full, it's difficult to pull out a laptop and look at a website. So I think this is great, and I think it's a great idea. My question is, I can see you guys putting more effort into this and making a fantastic and useful application, but what are your thoughts for future upkeep and maintenance? For instance, as study spaces are added, as changes are made to the map, that sort of thing, how do you see that working? In particular, once you've left UVA.
I think the idea would be, well, right now we're using the proto.io platform. So right now we can add different screens and stuff like that so that we can accommodate to different study spaces. But like you said, there's a lot of study spaces that we haven't included yet, like the music library, and there's other smaller spaces that students do like to use. So I think something that we could implement in the future is having students suggest or submit study spaces that they wish to be included on the app, and we can form a team that would add to this later, possibly annually, so we could update study spaces prior to every academic year.
I'll jump in with a comment and a question. First of all, this is awesome, and you guys hit the nail on the head with definitely something that that is needed and that we're kind of forever trying to do a better job of. I love the idea of the chat space for the different rooms. That's something that I put a big old asterisk next to try and come back to. And if you can find a sustainable way to track traffic to spaces, that is the holy grail. We have been trying to do that for years and years. So good on you. I hope you succeed. What I wanted to ask about was the account feature. And it strikes me as a little bit of a limitation that I could be reading this wrong, but it seems like someone can't get to the app if they don't create an account. And so I'm curious what your reasoning behind that is, and would you maybe consider having certain features available to someone without an account? But I'm curious kind of what's my motivation for creating an account? Like what do I get out of giving you my personal information? What would be my motivation to do that?
Well, the reasoning that we had behind creation of account, we had been discussing if we wanted to link it with something like NetBadge, so only UVA students could access it. But then since libraries are open spaces for the general public, we decided against that and wanted to create an account. And we think that creating an account would make it easier so that you can use the chat room feature, because you need a profile and basic personal information to be able to be communicating with others on the app, and then also for it to be a basic safeguard and check that all the community members are there just for the purpose of looking for a study space.
Thank you.
So I have a question for the team. I'm curious how you're gauging the busyness level in each of the spaces, and if you're using one or multiple methods. Maybe one is people who have downloaded it and are actively using your app, or maybe you're querying the routers, or you're using some other, or maybe somebody in each of the libraries is entering this information manually. But what are some of your methods to gather this information?
So for right now, just because especially as we've been working on this at home and not at UVA, our current goal is to have, similar to the way the Waze app does it for traffic and accidents and things like that, we wanted to have UVA library employees tracking these study spaces. And that's why we've only been able to have study spaces like Clem and Alderman and Thornton Stacks in our app right now. But in the future, we're hoping to create a device that will be able to track, like you said, like routers and the noise level with tracking decibels. So that's definitely an improvement we hope to make in the future.
Right. I would guess if you could assume that everybody has a phone. I mean, I'd guess students are what, 98% saturated with phones. That you could probably filter that out and query that way. But I think it would be really awesome. I think this is great what you've designed here, and love it. And can't wait to see what comes next.
Great. I think now it's time for Team B to present your project.
Yeah, okay. I'll go share my screen.
Okay, I can see your share screen.
Okay.
Awesome. So hello everyone, we are the team WAHOO makers. My name is Izzy, and the partners of this community project were Georgia and Theo, who is not here today. Our community project focuses on utilizing solar energy on grounds to better the sustainability involvement within the University of Virginia. So this was such a fun and riveting project for all of us, so we hope you enjoy our work. Now, our purpose for this community project was to encourage the growing relationship UVA has established with the Office of Sustainability, and to support the prospect of using renewable energy to deplete our carbon footprint in the atmosphere. It's important to establish independence from these fossil fuel generated electricity and decrease our greenhouse gas emissions for not only our present planet, but for our future generations to come. So as students, all of us, we wish to foster an increased participation in sustainability-led movements and going green practices at the University of Virginia. Specifically, we chose to implement solar-powered charging stations throughout grounds. This would not only assist students in remaining properly engaged in their studies, but also contribute to the larger advantageous phenomena of a cleaner yet healthier planet. Moving on to the empathize phase of our community project, our target users for this implementation was not just students of the university, but also staff and visitors to the grounds as well. I'll make sure that it keeps up. So we needed to ensure that not just the needs of students were being met as we move forward with this idea. Because of UVA's technological emphasis for the students as well as staff, we thought to assist with the hardship of maintaining a connection while prioritizing academics, work, and personal life. However, also installing such a convenient, efficient, abundant, and hopefully easily accessible charger for public use would highlight the UVA community as one of the driving forces of sustainability and going green efforts to lead the Charlottesville community as a whole.
To begin the ideating solutions phase of our project, we sent out an initial survey to students and visitors of the university inquiring about how often they typically charge their devices, at what times of the day, and where they normally charge. We originally thought bus stops could be a potential location for the chargers, but realized they lack adequate sunlight and users would likely not spend enough time there to make charging their devices worthwhile. The second most popular suggested location for a communal charger was for the dining halls. Students spend large chunks of time in the dining halls socializing, working, and eating. We settled on the castle as our location, a popular on-ground restaurant which already has outdoor seating. We conducted a follow-up survey and received positive feedback for the implementation of stationary solar charging tables at the castle.
Moving to our research throughout the semester, a big obstacle to implementing solar energy in the first place, especially because us fellows previously had very little knowledge of solar panel installation, is that we needed to know the relationship between wattage, cost, and efficiency for our target users. Thankfully, I actually at home had access to a portable solar charger of 1.5 watts, which is illustrated on the document, and the full charge time for a device was about 6 hours. And this calculation alone became our basis for research when delving deeper into alternative stationary models rather than portable models, which included solar panels, as we obviously were implementing something much larger in scale. This research led us to the following calculations of our wattage cost ratio, and another solar powered product was found below that was only 3 watts, and this was installed on the top of a camping trailer. And a customer viewed that it allowed for about a 20% charge in about 30 minutes. So both this as well as my personal device cost around $30 as well. So while roof installation of solar panels was obviously exponentially more expensive, thankfully we were able to receive the same relative efficiency, but at a much lower cost than previously expected. We used this information for our target users in our follow-up survey to determine what lengths of time students and visitors would be willing to stay at our chosen location and charge their devices, which was really, honestly, the crucial piece of information in what our wattage should be for our solar panels.
Next, we began prototyping and designing our model. The first 2 sketches represent potential designs for our original idea, a solar charging table. However, after conducting research into costs and feasibility, we realized it was unnecessary to build a completely new table when the castle already has outdoor seating and tables. We thought, why not simply modify them? The 2 most important components of our design are the solar panels and the charging ports, which users connect their devices to. We designed these as 2 separate parts, which could be joined to a pre-existing table. The solar panel, as seen in the middle left of the photo grid, has a hollow cylindrical attachment which can be fitted over the top of the table's umbrella pole. The charging port, to the right, is also fitted around the pole, but near the tabletop surface so users can easily plug in their devices. wires will run down the pole connecting the solar panel to the charging port. By simplifying our design into two parts, we reduce the cost of our idea while increasing convenience and still reaching our end goal of providing users with solar energy to charge their devices. Finally, we asked for more feedback. And we received largely positive responses to our more targeted survey seeking feedback on our design. 77% of respondents studied outside at UVA, at least occasionally, and 86% of respondents sometimes needed to charge their devices while on grounds. In addition, 100% of respondents said they would be willing to use the charging facility for 30 minutes or longer while eating or studying. This indicates that a large potential user base exists and that their needs match what our project could offer them without requiring them to significantly modify their habits.
Now, unfortunately, because we weren't anticipating a global pandemic to befall us during the semester, there were a lot of complications in accomplishing this project. Us not being allowed on grounds, for instance, deterred our navigation and measurements, and actually being able to install a physical high fidelity prototype, which was really unfortunate, but we tried our best to implement what we could. We worked around these issues through an additional survey of students, which is our final survey for feedback follow-up. And as you saw in the feedback, everybody seemed to enjoy our ideas so far. So hopefully we'll be able to implement that in the future on grounds once we're able to return.
We also wanted to discuss the improvements that we could also implement. We made adjustments throughout the design process to continually improve our idea, and most significantly, it was transitioning from the construction of a whole new table to 2 individual and customizable parts, which could be added to the existing table. In the future, we could further improve our design with the additions of an optional lockbox in the solar panel battery. A lockbox would allow students to securely leave their phones charging in the box for a few hours while they attend classes. The addition of a solar panel battery to our design would improve it by allowing the solar charger to store extra charge. The current design means the charger is limited by the availability of sunlight because it does not have the extra reserve. A battery would allow the charger to function at all hours of the day, regardless of the weather.
And at the bottom, very quickly, lessons learned. What I took from this program will unmistakably follow me for the rest of my life. I worked with wonderful people and I've gained experience with makerspace technology that I would have previously never had the opportunity in obtaining. So I thank Fang and the WMP for this wonderful experience.
Yeah, and to quickly summarize my lessons learned, I just want to say thank you to Fang and my other fellows for a wonderful semester. And from everything we've done from the training with the technologies to the speaker series, I've come to realize that I don't just want to share my knowledge with others, especially when it comes to the Girl Scout Day Camp, but also the excitement for the work that we've done. And I look forward to see what's next for the program.
And at the very bottom are all of our references and credits for all the photos and everything that we used.
Thank you.
Great, now it's time for feedback from the panelists. Round of applause.
Thanks, Phil. I've got a question for you, and it's similar to the question we asked the prior team. What happens when it breaks, as well as what kind of maintenance do you anticipate? Does the solar array need to be cleaned every so often? Because from what I understand from solar, if it gets dirty or there's some kind of debris on it, it may not perform particularly well. So I think cleaning is a usual maintenance. And what else do you envision? Like, once you set this up, what's the regularity of checking in on it and keeping it optimized and running as best as it can?
So most definitely, yeah. As far as maintenance, solar panel maintenance and installation is super expensive. But one of the issues that we are actually really concerned about, but obviously we can't anticipate now just because we're not on grounds, but because of it being installed and on grounds, which is a really historically like famous site, we'd need a lot of permits and obviously a lot of red tape to go through as far as implementing or installing it on grounds. But I would assume with our permits, then the like the bodies of people and being involved would be a part of like the UVA maintenance. And we could work something out with them so that it's like a monthly check-in of making sure that it's cleaned off properly. But yes, no, definitely that is a big concern because we're not sure if they would be able to have workers to be able to, maintain it. Obviously we could, but we're only going to be here for the next 2 years ourselves. So that is a big idea, but hopefully UVA maintenance would be able to work with us in some way.
And also, I do think that its location, it kind of makes it, because it's simply going on top of kind of an umbrella table, and so that it's fairly accessible for maintenance is needed to be done.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. I think you identified a topic that I hear coming up a lot with students on grounds around sustainability, which is the question of outlets, right? And how do you charge all your devices when you're outside? So I think it's a really good investigation in that way. Also, I think trying to design a new table, but actually retrofitting something makes a lot of sense because UVA has a very strict set of furniture that they buy. And I've been trying to deal with this at the IRC. Anything that, it's very hard to do something that goes outside their norms. So working with what's given makes a lot of sense. So I think those things are all great. If you continue to pursue the project, I would suggest looking into, you really need to analyze the exact site of your solar installation. I mean, for instance, I was just looking at a Google map and, the castle face is almost due north or about 15 degrees off of north. So all those tables along the edge of the castle are going to be in shade all the time, and they're going to be shaded by the buildings. So the only place it would work would be on the outer bank of tables. And even then you're going to have a lot of shadow in the afternoon from the dorm there. So if, you might think about moving tables, and I'm not sure what happens on the east end of that building. I'm just looking at some photos online now, but I think you would have to make sure that those were installed not on the edge facing the Dell, but on the other side where the door is. Because, do you know what I'm saying?
No, of course, yes.
The thing about solar panels, they're completely place dependent. And so installing something that's going to be in shade most of the time just isn't going to work.
Of course, thank you.
I really love this project. So thank you for bringing it to us. And I do hope that you continue with it. And I like that you started with one place, like let's just get it somewhere and prototype it. And hopefully, bringing in Phoebe's comments, I was having a similar thought as where exactly is it going to go? But you said something at the beginning about making this, making grounds even more open to the public and to all of our guests and visitors, but also kind of our internal community. And I like the idea of bringing kind of power as equity to the university community and the surrounding area. And so I was wondering, as you kind of think about different sites, if there was some other thing that would draw people to a site. I think you're right to say that students are at a place of eating for enough amount of time that they would be able to get some sort of charge. And maybe there's like a second list of, I don't know if it's some sort of like historically significant areas around grounds that are next to somewhere that someone could sit, or something that would kind of draw students and visitors kind of around UVA that would then, when they sit, something pops up on the screen, or something is there for them to read, or something is there for them to engage with that gives part of a historical tour of UVA that already exists, or is some other type of information gathering place. But I like that you were saying we're starting to retrofit furniture, and I was wondering if you might also look at what the bus infrastructure is like, what the light pole infrastructure is like, and other things that might already exist that don't have permanent seating. And maybe the project then becomes more about seating, but I think there are a lot of other locations that facilities would be totally game to put something on. And so some sort of adapter plate to go onto those things might be critical, but sounds like a green grant process to get you something little bit of funding to start off with, and then, you know, try it out and test it. And that's how the bike share started, like the bike stations, and it's totally doable.
Thank you very much for the suggestion. You and Phoebe both. Yeah, it was definitely a big obstacle, and even kind of structuring this list in the first place. Buses were definitely one of our first ideas. However, because as students, us waiting for buses, we generally only waited 15 to 20 minutes before a bus would come, and we figured that wouldn't be adequate time, you know, for a device to be charged, which is why one of our improvements was considering lock boxes, not necessarily staying there, but going to class and having your device charged. And then as far as dining halls, we figured that as far as the adequate sunlight, obviously we have the same problem at the castle as well, but sorry, somebody's trying to blow dry leaves or something right now. But you'd have to be on the top floor of the dining halls, as well as being at a window seat, which are generally taken as well. So yeah, thank you very much for this suggestion. That was a big obstacle in even installing this in the first place.
Hi, F.O.N. I have one small comment, if I can make it. I think that all of these are great ideas, but I'd suggest you just get started, and you could probably very easily monitor the solar collection and the rate at which the battery's charging, and also the rate at which it's depleting. And if you find either it's not a good location to collect solar energy, or it's in a location where it's not being frequently used, you can change it. You can move things around and just start iterating on this. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much for the great presentations, and as well as the feedback from the panelists. We're in short of time, but I still want to leave some time for the guests to provide feedback or ask questions. We'll probably only have time for maybe one for each project. So for Team A's project, any of the guests want to provide a feedback or ask a question, you can either put in the chat box or unmute yourself to start. Anyone? Okay, if not, we move on to Team B's project.
I have a question actually for Team A.
Oh, great, yeah.
If I might ask, I also thought it was a really amazing project, and I was wondering, I love your idea of some sort of device that you would put at the location itself. You probably could get some of that decibel levels from an app already on a phone. But if you wanted to make some sort of designed device, it's almost like a check-in station. And so what other information would you want on that check-in station? Could you scan it with a QR code so that someone coming in could kind of add themselves to the location, though a Waze type app you were saying was probably good. What other types of information would you imagine kind of in a goal, future goal, would you want to grab? And furthermore, if you wanted funding from the university, what kind of information do you think the university would want to scrape from this that you can kind of use as a marketing to the university to make it a reality?
So obviously, all of this depends on the amount of people that are using our app. So we're hoping that everybody who is a student there will be aware of the app, and then they'll be able to, I love your idea of the check-in station, because it will update the information very quickly, and it is simple, and it'll constantly be updated on the app for everyone to see at that particular time. I think the two main pieces of information that we'd love to collect is the noise level. So that would just be how loud the study space is at that particular time. And it'd probably be best for that to be at different levels of a library or something, because it does differ between those. And then also the number of people in the library at that time. Those are the main two things. we don't want to populate the app with too much information because we still want it to be very intuitive, simple, minimalistic, so any new user can hop on and just get out the important information that they need. We don't want to add a bunch of unnecessary details that'll just kind of muddle up the app. And then in terms of what UVA would want, we think that probably the number of people that are visiting a library at what particular time would be extremely helpful for hiring purposes of staff and timesheets for when they should be working at what areas. And then also, if they would want to develop more study spaces on grounds, they can look at what are the most popular destinations and model it after the libraries that have those qualities.
And think about the informal study spaces as well. Like, could you kind of tap a place that you're studying but isn't a typical study space, and if it gathers interest, then the university might invest in it and kind of make it more of a hospitable space. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question and the response. Now we're moving to Team B. Anyone from the guest or the panelists want to ask questions or provide feedback?
I'll just echo what I think a few others have said, that I like the way you iterated on your idea to try and rather than create new furniture, to retrofit old furniture. And I think you're thinking really practically, and just trying some stuff out and seeing what works seems like a really good way to go. So nice job.
Thank you very much.
Great. Now we're gonna move on. So I will start sharing my screen again. Can you all see my screen? Great. So now we're moving on to the next section, which is the Girl Scout Maker Camp. So basically the goal for the camp is to empower our future generation. Hopefully they're gonna develop an interest in pursuing STEM career. And also we want our fellows to become mentors and role models for the next generation. And a lot of our fellows or people who have applied for this program are longing to, develop better teaching skills. So that's another goal for the Maker Camp. So, so the Maker Camp is not, sorry. Put it back. So the Maker Camp is not a new program. We actually hosted one in 2017 with the staff and collaboration from the Learning Design Technology Center. But we thought it would be great to have our female students here at the UVA to get involved in the program because they are similar in age, and then they also have a more diverse representation than us, and they can also help us accommodate more Girl Scouts for the camp. So that's why we incorporate this into the program design. And what we did is basically following the design thinking methodology, and we come up with the overarching how might we questions. And we actually invited a group of Girl Scouts to come to the Robson Media Center, provide them with a tour, and then actually interviewed them, the fellows interviewed them for an hour to learn about their needs. And then we also synthesized our findings from the user interviews and then come up with the following how many questions we want to address during the camp. And these are how might we build awareness and the confidence about the Girl Scouts' social roles, and then how to help foster their interest in STEM, how might we develop better mentorships for them, and how might we help them overcome their learning challenges in STEM. So based on those how might we questions, we did a brainstorming session, basically coming up with solutions, activities, and best ideas for it. And then we picked the best ideas and then put it into a concept map. And then later we divided them into 3 different parts and also divided our fellows into 3 different groups to continue working on the lesson plans using the Understanding by Design template. So these lesson plans are also attached in the link I shared in the chat box, so you can take a look. And after they finished designing their lesson plans, and then they worked on designing their presentations for the camp. So that's what they're gonna present now. So I'm also very pleased to announce that we have invited also panelists for this part, and now we'll have them introduce themselves.
Hey there, I'm Joe Watts. I'm the lab manager at the Make to Learn lab over at the Curry School of Education and Human Development. We are actually an NSF research center jointly with the University of Northern Colorado and Princeton University that the Curry School is kind enough to house. And we try to address a lot of the issues that were talked about at the beginning of this presentation as far as curriculums that connect STEM education to real world application and developing mindsets that value failure and iterative design. And then we also teach a couple of classes here at the university as well.
And I'm Alan Shepard. I am the Makerspace manager in the Scholars Lab Makerspace. We help do a lot of 3D printing and electronics, working and collaborating with students and faculty on classes and individual projects. F.O.N, you're muted.
So for this part, the schedule is we have 15 minutes for presentation, and we will have 5-minute feedback from the panelists and another 5 minutes for feedback from the guests. And again, we will play a sound reminder if at the 14-minute mark as a reminder to wrap up the presentation. And I will be in control of the slides. And let me just quit so I can share the slides now. Can you all see it? Great. So now I will pass over to Izzy and Ishika.
Hi everyone, I'm Izzy once again. This is my partner Ishka. We were in charge of designing the beginning section of the Girl Scouts Maker Camp. So this entails introductions, fun activities, as well as tidbits and rules for the remainder of the camp.
We wanted to introduce each of the mentors at the beginning of the camp so that the girls could get to know a little bit about us. We would introduce ourselves, tell them what we're studying, and tell them where we're from. After this, we would ask the girls to introduce themselves as well. And the goal of these introductions is to set a strong foundation for our mentorships with the Girl Scouts so that they feel like we're people that they can rely on. Next, we have some icebreakers to help us continue to foster this mentorship.
Yes, so one of our priorities as fellows of the WMP is to make sure the girls feel comfortable with us as well as their surroundings. The camp is supposed to be a fun opportunity for them to both learn as well as gain experience with STEM technology. And so we wanted to alleviate the stresses and anxiety regarding being at a university, at an institution of higher education they're not completely familiar with, by involving them in some fun and engaging activities and let them know that we are here to support them in their journeys and that it is a safe space to both learn and grow. So the first idea to break the ice with the girls is a game called the Hobby Game. And we selected 3 primary hobbies, baking, painting, and playing video games, that we thought at least every girl could find some familiarity in relation to. A big goal of this camp is to make the girls aware that they don't have to stretch that far out of their own current comfort zone to pursue STEM fields or future careers. They can look to their own individual interests today and see that STEM is already incorporated into so much that they already do. Baking, for instance, involves both chemistry as well as biology. Painting involves chemistry by the mixing of chemicals and creation of textures. And playing video games involves heavy coding and programming. And since Ishka and I are computer science majors, we wanted to save the best for last, of course.
The second icebreaker we chose is the game 2 Truths and a Lie. We thought this would be a fun way for us to find even more shared interests with the girls especially because we want the girls to feel as comfortable with us as possible. Because this is our section, Izzy and I both provided examples of how to play Two Truths and a Lie. This would show the girls how the game works, and it would also help them to get to know us even more. So they just have some fun facts about us, and it's how we're going to start engaging the girls in this game.
Yes, and after my example is Ishka's example. And then directly after that, another aspect of the camp is to provide the girls with certain influential figures that they can identify with and look up to. While they have us as mentors, more close to their ages, we wanted to make sure they knew that being successful as a woman pursuing a STEM career was not only possible then or before, but now as their mentors are, as will it continue to be with them in the future, because we believe in and encourage their abilities. Hetty, which is illustrated, was chosen as she is not only an influential engineer responsible for the Allied win in World War II, but also a world-renowned actress as well. The next slide, or the next two slides, as depicted Dr. West, which is simply a stellar model for all, as she is extremely successful in nearly every aspect of her life, but greatly also influenced something we all have come to know, love, and utilize every day, the GPS. And Dr. Bowman, lastly, is someone we implemented to the camp because while she just recently turned 30, she is a prominent figure that has not only have her doctorate and has studied at Purdue University, University of Michigan, MIT, California Institute of Technology, as well as Harvard, but assisted in developing the first known image of a black hole in space as well. Someone so young and so accomplished would definitely help the girls in developing confidence in their own abilities.
After the icebreakers, we wanted to introduce the concept of having a growth mindset to them. We believe that having a growth mindset will be very important to the camp, but also to their lives in general as well. We provided a short YouTube clip that explains the differences between growth and fixed mindsets, and then we would explain how they can actually practice this mindset. This is extremely important because if the girls have growth mindsets rather than fixed mindsets, they'll feel comfortable and confident using the makerspace technologies that will be introduced to them later in the day. More so, we want to show the girls that having a growth mindset will allow them to accomplish whatever they end up putting their minds to in the future.
And lastly, just to clarify the expectations for the day and lay out a basic guideline for everyone to follow as the day's camp progresses is to its various activities. We wanted to make sure the girls have the most fun by being nice to one another, maintaining that I can growth mindset versus that I can't fixed mindset, and listening to their mentors and camp directors so that they can get to each activity planned for them without any hiccups. And then the next section is social roles, which is Georgia and Theo.
Hello again, my name is Georgia, and I work with Theo to plan activities for the girls to help them understand the gender inequality in the STEM field while building their self-confidence that they belong in the field if it's an interest of theirs. We'll open by having them participate in the Draw a Scientist experiment. They'll have 1 minute to quickly sketch what a scientist looks like to them. This is a popular activity which researchers have asked for decades when trying to study stereotypes about the STEM field. And so then we'll discuss the evolution of the study quickly with them. Prior to 1977, less than 1% of participants were women. By 2016, this number jumped to 28%. The reason behind sharing this with the girls is because we want to have a positive discussion with them. Yes, sexism in the STEM field still exists and there's still a gap, but we've made improvements as a society to bring equality to the field. More importantly, we need to continue making these improvements. We're also going to ask them to reflect on why they believe they depicted their scientists how they did. And so these are the discussion questions that we'll ask them to have them thinking about their own experiences in school. And we'll also share some statistics on the representation of women in STEM, in case they need to see the cold hard facts. Next, we'll ask the girls to take Harvard's implicit bias test to help them understand how implicit biases can shape the way we see each other. The girls are at an age where they may not realize how much their perception of society can be altered by their subconscious and how this can affect their decisions. After taking the test, we'll once again ask the girls to reflect on their biases and why they might have gotten the results that they did. Lastly, we wanted to provide the girls with a fun activity to build their confidence in uncomfortable situations. We'll split the girls into 3 to 4 groups and provide them with real-world scenarios for them to role-play and act out. For example, one of the scenarios will be a group science project for school. There's only one girl in the group, and the boys aren't taking her input seriously. So how should each group will have a few mentors assigned to them, and we'll discuss the scenario with them and plan out a skit for them to act out in front of everyone else. And they can talk among themselves and determine the best way that she should stand up for themselves. And the point of this is to help the girls recognize that they're very capable of handling uncomfortable situations and help build their confidence. We kind of want to expose them in a fun way to what could potentially become something that challenges them later, and give them the tools and the knowledge that they need that they can handle it. And lastly, at the end, if we have time, the fellows will each experience of their own about what it's like to be a woman in STEM. It might be a challenge we faced or how we've gained confidence in our abilities. And altogether, we believe these activities will allow us to be relatable mentors to the girls. They're at an age where it's hard where they may not have completely grasped the inequality in STEM, but we've talked to them, and it's funny when we ask them to reflect on what the classroom is like. And they normally just say the boys are loud and obnoxious. And while that is funny, it can lead to a future classroom where maybe the girls feel the need to be quieter and not have their voices heard. And we just want to let them know that they can stand up for themselves if they want to share their input. And so we believe these activities will make us be relatable mentors to the girls and give them the tools and confidence to thrive in STEM or whatever fields hold their interests. Thank you.
Brittany and I will be taking you through the Makerspace Technologies portion of the camp. First, the girls will be splitting into 2 groups to work on either virtual reality and augmented reality activities or 3D printing. Then they'll switch activities after an hour and a half in. So I'll be taking you guys through the virtual and augmented reality portion of the camp. Before the girls get hands-on with the VR and AR systems, we'll be having a discussion about the topics to gauge their pre-existing knowledge on it. Afterwards, we'll have a quick 6-minute video explaining the science behind VR that is very engaging. What we like most about this video is that it has female representation in STEM, since the talking head of the video is a woman. And then after watching the video, we'll talk about some interesting points that were made, and then get into working with the technology. Again, we'll be splitting the group into 2, so no one's left sitting around while others are working on their Makerspace technologies. And the VR portion will be Google Earth, and the girls will be able to explore UVA, Charlottesville, and basically anywhere on the globe. And then for the HoloLens group, they'll be interacting and manipulating objects in their reality. And lastly, when there's free time, we'll also be letting the girls freely explore any other apps that are on the VR set and the AR set. Now, Brittany will be taking you through the 3D portion of the camp.
My Makerspace Technology is the 3D printing portion of it. My section has a similar format to Michelle's. First, we'll be asking the girls a few questions. Earlier in the semester, we conducted a focus group where a few of them mentioned they have experience with 3D printing. So I'm hoping that they can elaborate more on it in order to give us a better idea of their skill level. The last question may be a little difficult for them to answer, so I plan on showing them a few examples on the next slides. The first real-world application is prosthetics. They are extremely cost-effective and beneficial. A typical one could be thousands of dollars, while a 3D prosthetic one could be made for under $100. The next application is includes bridges, homes, or other structures. The first one is a footbridge in Madrid, Spain, and the other one is a tiny home in Austin, Texas that was 3D printed out of concrete in under 24 hours. The last application is one that everyone wishes could be installed in their home. It's a 3D printer that can print food. ABS plastic isn't the only material that can come out of a 3D printer. This company uses chocolate. Afterwards, 2 videos will be presented. One is about the history of 3D printing, and the other is about how impactful 3D printing could be in the future. I will then present a tutorial and follow these steps to demonstrate how 3D printing is done at the RMC. For the rest of the time, the girls will be creating their own 3D prints. I will show them how to use the basic functions on Tinkercad, and then they are free to follow wherever their creativity takes them. When they're done, we will ask them to save their files since there will be too many designs and not enough printers to have them printed out on the day of. However, we don't want the girls to leave empty-handed, so I designed a little token that they can take home with them at the end of the day. It has the UVA logo and also the Girl Scout camp maker name on it. So I hope when they see it, they will remember the great day they have.
Okay, so and this is our last slide. So apologize again for the connection issue. And now it's time for feedback from the panelists.
So there were 2 things I really liked about what you guys did here. The first is the approach to STEM through hobbies and interests that the kids already have. We work a lot with middle school through community college and 4-year college students. And one thing we have found tracking students through that pipeline is that almost always when a girl drops out of a coding course or drops out of a STEM program and we ask them why, they say, "We hate to code, it's too abstract." But we found that if you approach it from a different angle and say, hey, we're going to learn how to code music, or we're going to learn how to we're going to focus on the end product, and coding is just going to be a tool to get us there. What are you interested in? And let's find a way to incorporate that. It works much better, and people tend to stick around longer, which brings me to the other thing I really like about your project here is the focus on keeping the girls involved. Because when you talk to a lot of educators about women in STEM, the big question that everyone talks about is how do we attract them? There aren't as many people out there talking about how do you keep them in the program once they're already, once they're enrolled. And it's one thing to get women in the door. It's a completely different thing to make them feel comfortable in a room full of men who, like you said, can be loud and obnoxious and pushy and, tend to make the environment uncomfortable sometimes. So I think your approach to attracting women to STEM fields is great, and it's right on. But I also think that your approach towards teaching the girls how to be comfortable and confident once they're there so that they can stay long enough to complete the program is perhaps even more important.
Thanks.
That's a very good point, Joe. Thanks. A couple of them that I had were kind of along that lines of, sorry, my internet connection keeps on saying it's unstable, so I might pop out here. But I like how you spend some time making them feel comfortable, because that's one of those things that's going to keep them there, is making them feel like they're comfortable. They have a sense of belonging there. They're not outcasts or anything, but they're welcome there. And one of the things that you do that help build that sense of ownership is having them describe some of the rules as you kind of described what the course is going to be like or what the day is going to be like, having them set the rules so that helps them have some buy-in and ownership of the day, where they know that it's going to go like this, and if something messes up or someone messes up, this is the consequence for that. That's always a really good way of getting kids to have buy-in for their event that they're going through. And then also really liked how you showed examples of women in science who are making things and making an impact in the world. We just need much, much more of that in life in general. Thank you. Really good program.
One other thing that just occurred to me, and this is more of just an aside, I liked the inclusion of the 3D printed foods. And that specifically jumps to my mind because in the class we taught over at the Curry School this past semester, the class is designed as sort of just a broad introduction to maker technology, creative problem solving, and iterative design. We were looking for a project that everyone would be interested in, and someone said, can we do something with chocolate? And what we ended up doing was having everybody 3D print their own design, 3D print their own object, and then we put it in our vacuum forming machine so they could create molds that would, they'd have the inverse image, and then they could make chocolate molds or ice cube trays or bath bombs or whatever they wanted to. But the instant introduction of food to the course, it became the most popular project of the entire semester. So I think that's kind of a fun that you included an example of that as well.
Great, thank you so much. And unfortunately, I don't think we have time for feedback from the guest. So we'll just move on. And we are also at the 3 p.m. right now. So I understand if you have to leave right now, but if you still have maybe a few minutes to be with us, we'd appreciate it. And now I personally have been really impressed by all the presentations. So even if I have been working with the fellows for a long time, I'm still amazed by what they accomplished throughout just the one semester. So I want to also award them now with the certificate. And hopefully you can see it, and I feel really bad that I can't give you a physical copies right now, but I will definitely send the e-version after the event. I just felt like I'm so proud of the achievement, and I'm very impressed by your commitment to the this Women's Maker program and your passion for the community projects, as well as the planning for the Maker Camp. And even with the current pandemic, I have given the fellows the choice if they want to quit the program, if they run into any difficulties with continuing, but none of them took that option, and they all try their best to remain passionate and responsible till the end. It's especially difficult to keep planning for this Women's Maker, the Girl Scouts Maker Camp, when we don't know when we can actually implement them. All I have promised is that we will definitely do it once we're back on grounds. So we're at the end of the program. Just start real soon here. I guess what I want to say is, I guess my wish for the program is to really inspire female students to become change makers and give them the creative confidence so that they will take actions when they see a problem in the future. And also I want to equip them with methodologies, technologies, as well as the skills they need to come up with the creative solutions and also effective solutions to solve any problems that they encounter in the future. I know one semester is certainly not enough, so now I want to pass on to Maggie to talk about our future plans and express our thanks for whoever have supported us along the way.
Yes. So a ton. Our future plans are kind of up in the air with funding and things, but everybody should just know that we're absolutely going to keep doing this. It's been a fantastic learning experience for us, for the library, and for the fellows. So we are definitely going to do a year two whenever we can. So we're going to keep going and hopefully build a whole group of former cohorts and fellows. Something else that's come out of this that F.O.N and I felt that we couldn't let go of is that we're also trying to build an inclusive maker community at UVA. Because we had so many applications and we're only able to take a handful of students. We got a lot of questions from students afterwards of if there were other ways that they could have the opportunities that the fellows did, even in a more scaled down option. So that's something that we're also going to plan to do. Our plan for this semester was to have some meetings and do tours of different maker spaces, and then, pandemic kind of intervened, but we're going to keep going, is what we can share right now. And we wanted to thank a huge variety of people inside and outside the library. The Brown Library Endowment Committee, library leadership, Carla Lee and Chip German, who were fantastic and very enthusiastic about this group, Meredith Wolnick, in the Scholars Lab, Aaron and Will, Todd Burks in teaching and learning, and then of course all of the panelists and guests. We're so feel very supported and lucky to have all of you along with us on this process.
Thank you, Maddie. So this is definitely the end of the program now, and we will stay here for a couple of minutes if you have any questions. But again, thank you so much for attending our online showcase, and a round of applause again to all the fellows who has done an amazing job both presenting and working on the prototypes. And yeah, we may just take a virtual screenshot afterwards as a celebration, since we can't get a group photo. But yeah, if you want to leave now, you're free to leave, or if you want to chat more, we're here.